Hey guys, welcome back. We love rock with you. Today we're diving into the incredible and sometimes chaotic story of one of the greatest progressive rock bands of all time. Yes. Yes didn't just appear with capes and 20-minute epics. This journey started in a smoky London club with a few ambitious musicians. Now, if you know Yes, you probably think of long songs, wild time changes and album covers that look like fantasy novels. But there's way more to their story. So let's rewind all the way to the beginning. Late 1967. Swing in London.
You look like a mushroom.
Psychedelic rock is buzzing through the air. The clubs are packed, and young musicians are everywhere. Two musicians, Chris Squire and Peter Banks,
My name is Chris Squire. Here's my driving license.
had just left their previous group, The Scene. They joined a local psychedelic band called Mabel Greer's Toy Shop. They were playing the Marquee Club in Soho when a guy named Jack Berry, who ran the nearby Le Chasse Club, got one of their shows. He said the musicianship was very good, but it was obvious they weren't going anywhere. Ouch! But Berry had an eye for talent anyway, because he introduced Squire to a soft-spoken singer named John Anderson, who just so happened to be working at the bar in Le Chasse.
And the manager of the bar said, "Look, there's a guy over there, he's a bass player, and he's ask him if you want a singer. You don't know, he's just got a band going." So I went over and I met Chris Squire, who was like 6'3", and I'm looking up at this guy, and all we talked about was Paul Simon and the songwriting that he does and things like that.
That evening at Squire's house, they wrote Sweetness, which was included on the first Yes album, and Anderson subsequently joined as lead vocalist, with keyboardist Tony Kaye, jazz-trained drummer Bill Bruford, and sharp-edged guitarist Peter Banks. The first lineup of Yes was complete.
Cheerio.
Each member brought a unique ingredient. Kaye with his soulful organ tone, Bruford with his elegant complexity, and Banks with fiery guitar leads. They called themselves Yes. Short, bold, and endlessly open to interpretation.
And I kept saying to Chris, Mabel Greer's Toy Shop is a long name. Can we not shorten it a little bit? So we were rehearsing one afternoon, and I came up with the idea of life, he came up with the idea of world, and the guitarist, Peter Banks, said, "Why don't we call ourselves Yes?" And that was one of the big moments. We just looked at each other and said, "Is it the Yes?" I said, No, Yes.
From the very beginning, they weren't just trying to make music. They were trying to make something bigger. Yes released their first album in 1969, just called Yes. Then came Time and the Word in 1970. On that second one, the band decided to bring in an orchestra. Without asking guitarist Peter Banks. He hated the idea, said it buried the guitar in strings. And quiet before the album even dropped. He was replaced by Steve Howe, a brilliant guitarist with a unique, almost flamenco-influenced style. That was a turning point.
What was your memory of that first the session that's kind of stayed with you all these years?
Yeah. I had a very powerful impression. It kind of started almost like backwards. I kind of went, when I heard them playing in the room and they were jamming and we started to play something, and I heard Bill playing and I kind of went, wow, that's the kind of drummer I'd kind of like to play with. And then I look at Chris, he's like all over the bass, really hot bass, Tony Kaye's got this wonderful Hammond organ sound. And then suddenly, John opens his mouth, John Anderson's, the voice, of Yes in the 70s, so much 80s and things, but 90s. So basically 2000. So yeah, I was well impressed, and I thought, well, you know, get my foot in the door with this band. It's the kind of band I was looking for, where I felt, you know, possibly we were equal craftsmen in our skill. We'd put in, you know, I'd put in 10 years, you know, on the guitar to find that spot where I was at that point. And it was really a question of, you know, did they like me? You know,
His first album with them, the Yes album, 1971, finally makes waves. Songs like Yours Is No Disgrace and Starship Trooper got major radio play. The album mixed catchy parts with complex arrangements, something no one else was really doing at the time. Then Rick Wakeman, the cape-wearing keyboard wizard from the Strokes.
Rick's cape actually was from, I remember it distinctly, we were at Hartford, Connecticut, and doing some open air show. And there was a guy there, one of the audience, I think he was totally, you know, on something, and he was all crazy, and he had this big cape on. And somehow or other, I was talking to him, and you know, and Rick was there as well. And I said, you know, Rick, something like that would look good on you. And the guy actually said, oh, here, I have it. So the guy gave Rick this original cape, which was just that he painted it himself.
Johansson for Fragile and Close to the Edge. Wakeman was a classically trained keyboard wizard, and also a bit of a diva. It featured Roundabout, their biggest early hit, and showed off each member's individual talent. Every track was carefully arranged with both technical skill and creativity. Then came Close to the Edge in 1972. Many fans and critics considered this their masterpiece. It only had 3 tracks, but each one was a journey with shifting tempos, abstract lyrics and complex structures. But that perfectionism came at a cost. Drummer Bill Bruford left the band shortly after. He said working on Close to the Edge was exhausting. He wanted more freedom. So he went on to join King Crimson.
Looking back, why he left Yes?
Oh, 2 or 3 reasons. I think I was impetuous, a romantic kind of youth who'd only played, don't forget, I'd only been playing 4 years or so, and probably seen the same four rear ends in front of me on stage ever since I was a kid. Those are the only 4 people I'd played with, really. So I was looking to broaden out a little bit. I knew I could play Close to the Edge, but I hadn't a clue whether or not I could play with Robert Fripp in King Crimson.
Alan White took over on drums and would stay with the band for over 40 years. Now let's talk about the mid-70s, the peak of prog rock. Tales from Topographic Oceans, a double album with 4 songs, 1 per side. 4 20-minute songs inspired by Eastern philosophy. Sounds epic, right? Well, Rick Wakeman hated it.
Yes, sir.
He thought it was overindulgent and said it had padding to make it longer. During one show, while the band played a 20-minute epic, Wakeman literally ordered Carrie to the stage and dated behind his keyboard.
One question, believe it or not, I get asked a lot is, have I ever been drunk on stage?
He left after that tour,
I'm not proud of it.
only to return later.
Excuse me. Hello?
Still, the band marched on with Relayer, a heavier, jazzier album featuring keyboardist Patrick Moraz. It showcased their wildest musical ideas yet. By the late 70s, musical tastes were changing, and Yes started to feel the pressure. Wakeman returned. Albums like Going for the One and Tormato had moments of brilliance. But behind the scenes, the band was struggling. It gets better. Well, worse. Anderson and Wakeman left again, frustrated with the band's direction.
Can I just hear the new Mellotron sound, please? That wasn't really quite exaggerated enough.
You asked for a new Mellotron sound?
Yes, the new Mellotron sound. So really good.
Anderson felt the music was too commercial. Wakeman just couldn't deal with the chaos, and by the 1980s, the music world was changing. Punk and new wave were in, and long prog tracks were suddenly out. Yes broke up in '81.
And the reason for the break was because we needed it, I think.
But wait, this is Yes? They don't just break up, they mutate. The band hired Trevor Horn and Jeff Downes from the Buggles. You know, video killed the radio star. Yeah, that version of Yes released Drama in 1980. Some fans loved it, others didn't even recognize the band. An unexpected comeback was just around the corner. Chris Squire, Alan White and Tony Kaye teamed up with South African guitarist Trevor Rabin. They planned a new band, Cinema. But John Anderson returned, and the Yes name was revived.
And he had started working with Trevor Rabin, Chris Squire, Alan and Tony. They'd been calling themselves Cinema, and that's when Chris called me and said, do you want to listen to some music? I said, yeah, I'm cool. So we got in his car and listened to these tapes, and they were so amazing, right on that edge. I said, it's missing a few things, and Chris said, I thought you'd say that. Would you be interested in singing on the tracks? And I said, well, yeah, I would. Because I think the production is amazing, to be honest. I think the production is a unique energy. And so he said, well, come on in tomorrow and join the band and we'll call ourselves Yes. And I said, ah.
The result? In 1983, they made a massive comeback with 90125, creating a more mainstream, radio-friendly sound. This album was more commercial, more pop rock, and it worked. The single Owner of a Lonely Heart became their first and only #1 hit in the US. But John Anderson? He felt left out. So in 1989, he formed his own band with Bruford, Wakeman and Howe, calling it Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe.
Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe. All the original elements are now in place.
Yeah, it was basically classic Yes with a different name. Now we've got two bands of Yes guys calling themselves not Yes. Confused yet? The next chapter arrived in 1991 with the Union album, where both factions agreed, kind of, to work together. The album, a mix of tracks from both sides, often blended without the other members knowing. Wakeman later said he called it Onion because it made him cry.
Onion. Look at that. Woo! To the good onion. Good onion is a heavy onion.
They did a massive tour with 8 members.
Lead me on into the dawn.
2 of everything, 2 drummers, 2 keyboardists. Total madness. They smiled on stage, but behind the scenes, egos clashed, arguments exploded, and everyone was just trying to survive the tour.
A song called Survival. Hope you're feeling alright and enjoy the rest of the show.
In the 90s, Yes returned to their prog roots, with albums like Talk, Keys to Ascension, and The Ladder. Some beautiful moments, especially Homeworld. But the band's popularity had faded. Still they pressed on, fueled by dedicated fans and an unshakable desire to evolve. In the 2000s, John Anderson started having health problems. The band replaced him with Benoit David, a tribute band singer with a similar voice. Anderson was not happy, fans were split. Later, John Davison replaced Benoit, another sound-alike. Anderson never returned full-time. Some fans felt betrayed, others were just glad the band was still going. Then in 2015, the heart of the band, Chris Squire, passed away. That hit everyone hard. He was the only constant member through every album until then. In 2017, after decades of shaping progressive rock, Yes was finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But like everything in the band's history, it came with both celebration and sadness. The hall honored core members John Anderson, Chris Squire posthumously, Steve Howe, Rick Wakeman, Trevor Rabin, Bill Bruford and Alan White. But Peter Banks, the band's original guitarist, was left out. Despite his vital role, and had sadly passed away just 4 years earlier, and Chris Squire's absence was deeply felt. Still, in a rare and touching reunion, Anderson, Howe, Wakeman and Rabin stood on stage together, and when Rush's Geddy Lee picked up Squire's bass to perform Roundabout, it was more than just a tribute, it was a moment of healing. It wasn't perfect. There were all tensions in the room. But for one night, the music rose above it all and reminded us why Yes matters. Yes continues touring and recording, now led by Steve Howe and Jeff Downs. They released The Quest in 2021 and Mirror to the Sky in 2023. Lush melodic albums that showed the band still have creativity left. Alan White kept the legacy alive until his passing in 2022.
That his life should have come to an end exactly 50 years after he picked up the sticks and gave his all to the band he came to love.
The band today has no original members, but still waves the Yes flag. The story of Yes means something different to everyone. Some connect with the classic epics like Close to the Edge, others discovered them through the 80s hit Owner of a Lonely Heart, and for a whole new generation, Roundabout lives on thanks to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. From prog purists to anime fans, Yes continues to reach people in surprising ways. Their lineup may have changed, their sound evolved, but one thing stayed true: the music always brought us together. And that's the magic of Yes, a band that never stopped moving forward and still found a way to unite us all.